All right, shalom and welcome to the channel, you guys, and to the broadcast. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about first fruits and how first fruits actually exposes all of the frauds out there. And it's a multiple layer fraud system. We're talking about the Roman Catholic, the Jews, and even those that are keeping like the Zadok calendar, where they're not reckoning the days as Scripture says. And this is because they have fixed Sabbaths, which creates a problem for them, right? So we're going to be going over that tonight. And so the first thing I want to do is go back to, so by the way, if you're watching this in video form, today is the Shabbat, the 15th of the month. Every month it's the Shabbat at 15th, on the 15th day. This is no different. Just because it's Passover season, it's called a high Shabbat. That is what it is. Well, we can see this if we go back to Exodus 12, where we see the first Passover, and we see the beginning of the count, because there's days given to us. And Yah spoken to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, on this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, you should take unto them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household is too little for the lamb, then let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day. So 4 days they're living with this lamb or baby goat in the house, because they're bonding with it, right? Until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, and shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in the night, and roast it with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. That's what we did last night, right? Mm-hmm. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden in the water, but roasted with fire, his head and his legs, and with pertinence thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remains of it shall in the morning shall be burned in the fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, and your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste, for it is Yah's Passover. For I will pass over the land of Egypt this night, and will smite the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yah. And the blood shall be for you a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be for you a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast unto Yah throughout your generations, and ye shall keep a feast by ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread, and the first day ye shall put leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation, and no manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this same self day I have brought you and your armies out of the land of Egypt. So you see what he just said there. So we left Egypt the same set day, right? The same day, which is the 15th. This is when we're leaving. By the way, so if last night the Passover happened 2,000 years ago, Yeshua is now in the tomb, right? But going back to the Exodus, that's when they're leaving tonight. Mm-hmm. Tonight, when the sun goes down, that's when they're leaving. Okay. And by the way, we got a beautiful full moon, so we could see everything in the desert. We're not walking into cactuses and stepping on snakes and stuff. Right. We're walking in the full moon, right? So, that's what we've observed so far, right? Lost my place. And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread for this self same day. I have brought you your armies out. Excuse me. I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore, that ye shall observe this day in all your generations by ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread. We did that until 1 and 20th day of the month at evening. Everybody see what's going on there? So on the 21st day of the month, we're no longer eating unleavened bread. What's the next day? The 22nd. So bookend on each end, we got Shabbats, right? The 15th is a Shabbat. The 22nd is a Shabbat. Now, we got a conundrum because if we fix the day, and let's say these are Saturdays, right? And we don't even observe the 15th as of Shabbat because it's matzot, right? So and I see this with the Catholic Church, and the Jews do this as well, the Zadok calendar and all the others that fix the day, they're waiting a full week to do first fruits. We know Yeshua rose from the dead on first fruits, right?
Yeah.
That's 3 days later, day 3, not 3 days and 3 nights.
Yeah.
That's a misunderstanding what Yeshua was saying about Jonah. We can see historically that it was these sequential days, right? All right, so let's go to Leviticus, where we actually are getting the law. This is where everything is kind of laid out, because in Exodus, we're kind of given an introduction with Yah. He doesn't even go into first fruits at that point, really in detail. It's only here where he does that. And when we find out that we're celebrating first fruits on the morrow after the Shabbat. Well, today's the Shabbat on our calendar. And I love how this fits so good on this calendar, and all the others, you have to do some crazy stuff with it. Like having first fruits, the first Sunday after the resurrection. Well, Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15 that Yeshua was the first fruits of the resurrection. So that is very clear. We're drawing the conclusion that he fulfilled this, not 1 week later. It can't be. So this is the conundrum they have. It's a problem they have, right? These are the feasts of Yah, even the holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. And in the 14th day of the first month, at evening is Yah's Passover. And on the 14th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and in the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. And ye shall have an offering made by fire unto Yah 7 days. And in the 7th day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. Now we come into the first fruits, where Yah starts to break it down and gives us an idea about this, right? And there's basically 2 first fruits. You guys know this? The first one is the first fruits of barley, happening at Passover time. You guys know when the next one is?
The wheat.
Huh?
Wheat.
It's the wheat. Now, the Christians call it Pentecost. This is a whole nother teaching I'm going to get in, but it's the same kind of thing. It's a deception with this particular day. And I think the devil's in the details with hiding things and obscuring things and hiding, Yah hides things too, but I think the devil's in the details when it comes to the Pentecost. But we're going to cover that a little. I want to do first fruits of barley first, because this is the focus right now. And Yah spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, so they didn't even do this until they come into the lands. Everybody understand that they are not keeping this like it says until they come into the land. They got to have barley. Okay, everybody understand that. We're walking around with supplies and leftovers, right? We're not growing wheat and barley in the desert. This is something that was grown in Egypt before we left. But when we get into the land, this is when we start doing this. Is what he's saying. When you come into the land which I give you, and you shall reap the harvest therein, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest to the priest. Everybody know what a sheaf is?
It's like a stack.
Well, exactly. It's like a clutch of wheat. Incidentally, you see this in the the Maserat sign of Virgo, Bethula, where she's clutching grain in her hand, right? It's like that. So we're waving this at barley time. We are not doing this at Shavuot. Everybody understand? Barley, we're waving sheaves. So it's green at that time. At Shavuot time, we're waving loaves. So we've already harvested something, made flour, made bread, and we're waving the bread. Okay, everybody keep that in mind. Like, I dropped my. You gotta be kidding me. I dropped my you guys better bear with me for a second. I dropped my mouse and it erased everything. That's kind of embarrassing. Just give me a moment. I'm gonna pause this video for a moment so I can get that back in. That's what happens.
Start.
All right, let's get back to the scriptures. Leviticus 23 is where we were. And Yah spoke unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and saying to them, when ye come into the land which I give you, you shall reap of the harvest thereof. And then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yah to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day when ye shall wave the sheaf and the lamb without blemish on the first year for a burnt offering unto Yah, and a meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 of fine flour mingled with oil, and an offering made by fire unto Yah for a sweet savor, and the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of him, and ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the same same day that you have brought an offering unto Yah. It shall be a statute forever through your generations and your dwellings. All right. So what I want to focus on is this: on the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. This is where the conundrum is. Because on the Gregorian calendar or any fixed calendar, and that could be the Zadok, and by the way, the Zadok is essentially a modified Hillel calendar. There is no keeping, they were not keeping a Saturday or a Sunday in the time of Yeshua. Matter of fact, we got all of our Gospels before the calendar was changed in 325 with Constantine, right? So there's no one in the Gospels, not even Yeshua, addressed a problem with the calendar. I saw another presenter make a lot of great points about where you see in the New Testament, in the Gospels, where Yeshua is attending festivals and feasts, and he's going to the temple. So there was no discrepancy there. He was there calling out the money changers because they were, doing things in the temple they shouldn't have been done. But don't you know, if they were off the calendar at all, he would have set things straight, right? So we know the calendar was not changed. We can see it historically with Constantine. This is when it happened. So the concept now of the morrow after, when you got to fit this on your calendar and it's a fixed date, we got a problem, because you know what they do? I know what else I had up here, which was, I'm going to pick on this group because I've been down a rabbit hole on this Zadok calendar here recently. Where is it? There it is. This crazy mess here. Now, it's great that they have first day, second day, third day, fourth day, right? That's Hebrew. Yom Rishon, the first day. Just talking about the Zadok calendar, because it's, like I said, it's basically a modified, Hillel. There's a problem with this, because As we're going to see on the calendar that we know to be is the calendar every month, this one right here, right? It's the same every month, every year. It's the same thing. On this calendar, which is crazy to me, they modify the intercalation of the new year that they are keeping, starting on a Wednesday is when they start. And this is the only difference between the Jews and the solar calendar. And there's a lot of intercalation on this. But what I want to show you is their 14th day of Nisan this year. And apparently what I've told every year they're going to do this. Look what day it is.
Tuesday.
April Fool's Day. It's April Fool's Day is when they kept this. It's so ironic, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. Now we can see the big numbers here is the Hebrew calendar days.
Yes.
That's when they celebrated Passover. You know when they're celebrating first fruits? They did it today. Sunday. So Sunday to them is the day after Shabbat, right? So their Shabbat is Saturday. So they got to wait a whole week to do first fruits. And yet we know from Paul that Yeshua is the first fruits of the resurrection. Everybody understood this. They wrote in the Gospels on the third day he rose. It was first fruits. It was not a week later, you guys. Look what they're doing here. So a week later, and by the way, this particular group is trying to throw into 3 days and 3 nights into the mix, right? But they are keeping first fruits. You see that? 4/13, that's today. This is when they're keeping first fruits.
Yeah.
A solid week later, more than a week later.
But they're the highly priest.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So there's flaws to that. Now we could say the same thing about the Hillel calendar. They're doing the same thing because they're keeping a Saturday, and so the morrow after their Sabbath will be Sunday, right? And by the way, the Jews like to call Sunday Yom Rishon, the first day of the week, and this is on the Gregorian calendar. They themselves will tell you they no longer keep an agricultural calendar. Jacob can tell us that. He's very aware that the rabbis, you know, in the Talmud, the rabbis gave themselves power to override the Torah. Did you know this? And so what they did was they took the liberty of changing some things. When Hillel was forced to make the calendar, and he did this, and it was a Saturday, guess what? Some things have to be altered, right? We're no longer keeping it as a agricultural calendar. So some things are irrelevant anymore, like first fruits. Do you think they're actually going and picking grain and waving sheaves? They don't do that. They don't go out there and do that, you guys. And now it's more symbolic, right? It's understood it's a harvest time, but they don't go and do that. Okay. So the 26th day, they say, is the first fruits. By the way, if we go to Leviticus, you can see the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. Now, what does that mean for us? If we look at our calendar, and by the way, I believe this is the legitimate biblical calendar. It is an agricultural calendar. That's the way it looks. The new moon day is always going to be the first day of the month, right? Whatever that day falls on a Gregorian, if it's a Tuesday, if it's a Thursday, Friday, or Sunday, each Sabbath after that is going to fall the same way. Does everybody understand? So Yah's calendar does not float. I've heard people come against the calendar and says it floats all over the place. No, your calendar floats everywhere because ours is the same every month. Ours is the same every month. It floats on the Gregorian calendar. So you can get really confused if you're trying to overlay the Gregorian with this, right? But it's the same thing every month if you're keeping the moon correctly. Now let's take a look at this. The 14th day of Nisan is the 6th day of the week on Yah's calendar, making the 7th day the 15th. Why is that? Because when I tell people this, is just like, it's not even a numeral of 7. Shouldn't it be 7, 14, 21, and 29? Well, yeah, if you're keeping a continual cycle of 7, not even keeping the new moon, you're ignoring the new moon. It's not even a day to you, right? Then you could, and there are some Hebrew calendars that this is their days right here. Then there are also some that keep new moon at full moon. So it's completely backwards 2 weeks difference than we are. All right. So we're all over the place too with this calendar thing. But what the Bible says, it says on the 14th day, he's crucified. He goes into the tomb on this day. The next day is the first day of unleavened bread. It is a Shabbat, a high Shabbat, the 15th, right? The morrow after the Sabbath is the first day of the week. You see that? It's the first day of the week, just like the Bible says. And we don't have to wait a week to get there. In other words, we don't have to wait a week. So this is actually first fruits. And by the way, first fruits overlaps matzo, you guys. It's not like sequential thing. We're keeping, basically matzo and first fruits on a same day, one of the days. Okay, they overlap, right? That's going to be this day. And if we're eating for 7 days, starting here, we're eating for 7 days. What does Leviticus say? We're to eat unleavened bread until the what? 20th and 1 day. That's right here. The next day is a Shabbat. Everybody see that? That is the way it's supposed to go. Putting Yeshua's resurrection 1 week later just boggles my mind, but yet we got this circular reasoning going on with a lot of groups.
So the reason why they believe that way?
Yes, it's because when it says tomorrow after the Shabbat, they don't recognize the calendar 15. Every month on the 15th day is a Shabbat. And therefore, every other day because you can count forwards and backwards and figure out what the days are. The Bible specifically outlines several months. I mean, we can find in Exodus 3 consecutive months where they're arriving at a certain point. If you read really close, they're resting. Yah hasn't officially got them but he's getting them synchronized. And you can see that 15 day comes up and over again. And then we can find another occasion in the book of Esther, chapter 9, where Yahuwah establishes another 2 days, except for besides the 15th day. The 15th is always a Shabbat. But in this case, in the month of Adar, celebrating what happened with escaping the hands of Haman, 2 days were added. So you got 3 days of Shabbat in the month of Adar. Everybody understand that? This is called Purim, right? 15th day is always a Shabbat. But you go read Esther 9, he started the 13th, 14th were Shabbats too. And so we can see that that's going to be a 3-day Shabbat right there, okay?
It's Shabbat.
Oh, yes.
They say to celebrate their victory on the 13th. And then the 14th is actually that day. So 13 is the preparation, 14 is that day of celebration.
I think we should probably go and read it again. But yeah, but it's 3 days of Shabbat.
3 days of celebration, but the 15th is the Shabbat.
Always, that's right. Was my point. Yeah, because of what was happening with Haman, 13th and 14th was always to be commemorated because of that. Okay. And that's in the month of Adar. All right. So it fits on Yah's calendar, what we see in the scriptures, right? And let me take this down. Now, we've established that Paul has declared that Yeshua is the first fruits of the resurrection. Now let's look at what's going on here in Matthew 28. Now, after the Sabbath. Okay, so here's the thing. I want you to imagine. Mary went to the tomb when? When did Mary go to the tomb? Did Mary go to the tomb a week later to anoint the body of Yeshua?
No.
He did not. She did not go a week later. We can see in Matthew 28, now after the Shabbat, toward the dawn of the first day of the week. Now here's where everybody slow down. We just saw that they're making that thing a week long now. And the first day is after Saturday. We can see in Matthew, it says after the Shabbat. When was the Shabbat? If you're not keeping 15 as the Shabbat and you're going to Saturday, the next Saturday, and then keeping it, first fruits on Sunday, You're a week out. Mary went to the tomb on day 3, which is first fruits. Why is that? Why didn't she go the next day after? Why couldn't she go today to anoint the body?
Sabbath.
Because it's the Sabbath. After the Sabbath, we know it's the next day, right?
Mhm.
The first day of the week is going to be the 16th day
After Sabbath.
after the Sabbath. It's not a week later, right?
Common sense.
It is common sense. I forgot to have a screen share on the YouTube family there. Matthew 28. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week. Right?
Mhm.
After the Sabbath, on the first day of the week, she comes to the tomb. Zadok calendar people, Hillel calendar people, the Roman Catholic Church is going to wait 1 week. And you're going to see them keeping on a Sunday, not the 22nd, on a Sunday, right? 1 week later, which is the 26th for them. Whatever. 26th day of the month. Anyway, it doesn't fit. If Mary went after the Sabbath, she is not waiting until after Saturday of the next week. This is day 3, right? And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of Yah descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were like snow, and the fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, be not afraid, for I know you seek Yeshua, who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen. Right after that, we can see in 1 Corinthians 15:20, Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those fallen asleep. He's the first fruits of the resurrection. And that can't be a week later, you guys, like we see on this calendar here. There's just no way.
They don't want to debate.
No, they don't want to debate. They don't want to talk about it. Matter of fact, when I brought some points up, because I was engaging some people on the Zadok calendar, and I said, please show me in the scripture where this is, because if you can show me, I'll walk away from the lunar solar and I'll start teaching this tomorrow. But you got to show me, right? Trying to get that engagement with people, and I got blocked. Didn't want to engage. No, the answer I got was, it's not in the Bible. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls in fragments. And then I was blocked after I was told that. So the Dead Sea Scrolls in fragments. There's not even a whole scroll that lays out and says, this is the calendar and this is how you do it. No, it's just pieces. And in those pieces are the priestly courses for the priest. And what they do is they take that and they try to spin it into, well, see, they were keeping a calendar. Oh, we found a sundial. It must be solar, right? And so it's a lot of speculation about it. There's nothing biblical about it. And then the calculation, how they do that, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, April 1st is Passover. Are you serious? I mean, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt sorry for all those people. Really, because I mean, it's beyond ironic that that's what they were doing, but it's a real thing, and it's a problem.
Big problem.
And so it's really for you to be on this calendar of the Bible it is a miracle. All the stuff you have to overcome, all the nonsense online to get to this point and get to this understanding, it's a miracle that you're here. Yeah. Now we have the same thing with the next first fruits, which is Pentecost. That the next part of the account there we see in Leviticus. We don't see the word, even though the English here has the word Pentecost there, you will not see that in the Hebrew. It is not a Hebrew word. And furthermore, I'm thinking it's not even the same day, because we got a problem with the wheat. And I'm being really serious about this, you guys. I come from a farming community, grew up in farming. I know how wheat is grown and barley is grown and when it's planted and when it's harvested. And I'm telling you right now, if you walk out in the middle of May when they're doing Pentecost, anywhere in the northern hemisphere, because there's a grain belt that runs all the way across the world, even in Israel. Israel's not a special place where grain is growing differently. I promise you. Okay. I get a lot of pictures around Pentecost time where they're showing me, oh, Jonathan, it's the grain harvest. They got wheat. No, do you notice where we are right now? It's Abib time. So the ripening of the barley is just beginning. That grain has to stay in the field and ripen until it turns brown, right? That takes some time. So by the time they're counting 50, it's the end of the barley harvest. This is the beginning of it right now. It's the end of the barley harvest. And you don't have any wheat because when you look at a wheat field, I should have pulled those pictures up. A wheat field is going to look like the barley field looks right now, very green.
So you're saying it's a month off?
It's off. Yeah. Okay. So what they do is they only count 50 days. It's off about 52 days. Yes.
That makes sense, because, you know, if we're moving the Aries, I would reckon the year to Pisces.
Mhm.
And even farther back than that,
Mm.
every couple thousand years, that would make sense, that it would be off.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. So watch what happens. It said, and ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath that ye brought the sheaf unto the wave offering. So we got a discrepancy with the first fruits and then the second first fruits, because Shavuot is also a first fruits festival. Yeah, you guys, it's the beginning of the wheat harvest. And that thing runs all summer long. Okay. Because they plant two kinds of wheat. One is harvested early summer, one is harvested late summer. They call this winter wheat and spring wheat. That's not when they're harvested, by the way. When you hear winter wheat and spring wheat, that's when they're planted. Okay. It's winter and spring. And this is, and because it's staggered like that, that's why you're going to have wheat early summer, late summer. So that by the time we get to the end of the wheat harvest at the end, what are we doing? It's the Feast of the End Gathering. What is that? It's tabernacle. So we're celebrating all of the harvests are completely finished. And by the way, in just a month or so, we're going to start planting again, right? The whole cycle starts over. So Pentecost, I think, is an interloper or somehow got written in there. And by the way, this is a hidden day. Shavuot is a hidden day. When you do the count correctly, you guys, you know what day it lands on? There's no moon. It's new moon. It's hidden. It's completely hidden. Pentecost is not like that, by the way. It has no reckoning of the moon at all. And furthermore, Acts 2 does not say 10 days later they were keeping Pentecost. No, it says when Pentecost was fully come. In other words, when Shavuot was fully come, right? That's Acts 2. It says, it's interesting that it uses a Greek word there, but we're talking about a Hebrew feast. That's part of the
twisting.
it's a part of the twisting there, because they could have easily put in Feast of Weeks. If we're going to use translations, the English translation would be Feast of Weeks. Why are we using a Greek word there? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it throws people off because they think we're only counting 50. You're going to see right here.
The, the beginning, they mark the beginning all the way to the latter end, which is the real Pentecost. Or
It's called Shavuot. It can't be just 50. And like we're going to see right here, I'm going to show you. And I know what it says in Deuteronomy. And by the way, there's something called the law of first mentions. Law of first mention. So if we read something in Leviticus and it says it one way, that's the way it is. When we see it again in Deuteronomy, which is just a reminder, it's only giving you bullet points. It's not giving you all the details. That's why you see in Deuteronomy, it says, when you count 50, it's understood. It's not just 150 count. It's two. Right. Watch this. And ye shall count from the morrow after the Sabbath, meaning after the first fruits, right? After the Sabbath. And from that day, ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, right? We're going to count 7 Sabbaths complete. When you count 7 Sabbaths complete, how many days is that? Anybody know? Right there. It's right there. Yeah, right there. Then you got a new moon. That's another day. Right?
Yeah.
So 7 Sabbaths complete. Even to the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. So the day after the 7th Sabbath that we count, look what it says to do. Then we number 50 days. That's going to give us 102 days because we got 2 new moons in there, you guys. And I'm telling you now, you cannot grow wheat in 50 days. You can't get wheat made into flour and made into loaves in 50 days. You can't do it. When you go out there in May in a wheat field, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see green wheat. And when you try to mash that up and grind it, it's going to turn into a paste because it has to be dried in the field for at least a month and a half, right? So it takes 7 months to get wheat. 7 months is what it takes. And that's from seed, planting the seed to maturity. And then what you're doing is curing it in the field, right? When it cures in the field, right?
40 days?
Huh?
Curing is 40 days.
It's around there. It's several weeks. It's several weeks. So what you'll see, and I've got videos of this. I drove from Oregon all the way to South Carolina. You know what I did? Every wheat field that I saw, I stopped and filmed it. And I saw a lot of them. And guess when they were harvesting wheat? When it was ready to be harvested. You know when it was? Late June, early July. That's when they start the wheat harvest. So Shavuot has to be further than the middle of May. It cannot be the middle of May. Because we have drifted from an agricultural calendar and we're no longer, on that kind of calendar, the Jews aren't either. They don't care about these observations. It's kind of symbolic now, right? And they'll even modify things with no regard to the way the feasts are supposed to be, right?
Well, this makes sense for pre-Hezekiah when they had perfectly within 60 years. It just seemed like their feasts and their harvests would line up perfectly.
Exactly.
Like the perfect calendar. It would just make more
But not
sense.
anymore.
And you think about it, all plants are grown by Yahuwah's power.
That's right.
Wherever they are. So he would align them perfectly so that they can have those harvests perfectly on those feasts.
Yes.
Well, the moment that they started sinning,
Exactly.
post Hezekiah, they things got jumbled up.
Mhm.
So we have to go back to the old way.
That's exactly right,
Which
brother.
is that then be precisely.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, we've got to pay attention to the grain when we're trying to learn the calendar because it's all about the grain cycles, you guys. It's not about anything. It's not about the priestly order is another way. The priestly order is on the calendar, but the calendar wasn't made for the priestly order. It was made for the feast of these grains, right? And it's not just grain. We're also talking about grapes and pomegranates and olives and all that kind of stuff. By the way, which are summer fruits. Which the Bible tells us very plainly that wheat and those are summer fruits. This is when we harvest that, right? It cannot be in May. And I get people to send me pictures every year of machinery cutting grain at 50 days. And when I look at it, you can tell by how they're cutting it. It's not a combine. Typical now in modern harvesting, combines are used. The pictures that they're sending me, it's not a combine that's cutting it. It's a cutter with a rake, and it rakes it up into a one line pile. You know what you do with that? You bale it. Do humans eat baled grain? No, that grain is made for the animals, and it's usually mixed with oats or rye or something like that, right? So the pictures they're sending me of these harvests is barley that's being used for animals. And I got people saying, no, Jonathan, you see they're harvesting wheat. No, I know what wheat looks like. And that ain't wheat, baby. That's barley. And so we got a lot of confusion because people don't understand agriculture. And they will fall for anything because somebody is saying this is the way, especially when it's a group that says, oh, we don't debate, we declare. Right?
Imagine they because we're so far from it, it's a natural farmer's calendar lifestyle. We cannot understand. We are like going to the market and buying this whenever it's not supposed to be the season and you buy this, but we do it. But in the past, no, they would buy the fruits according to the season.
Yeah. So we got any questions? You got any questions about this? You guys? That's about what I have for you on this part of it. We're going to continue, and the next time I talk, going further into Shavuot, and I'll even have some of the pictures that I was talking about, so you can see the difference. And especially when people say, "No, there's wheat," they love to say, "No, there's wheat being harvested in Israel," as if everybody's going by that. I know they like to sight the moon and everything in Israel, but we live here and we got grain here. And by the way, the grain belt that goes all around the world, it's the same planting and harvest seasons. You know why? Because there's seasons for everything. You can't just willy-nilly say, you know what? I think I'm going to plant some wheat tomorrow. Right? No, you have to have it on a certain time. You have to plant it, because if you plant it in the wrong time, you're not going to get a harvest.
Their harvest is gonna be not full.
It'll look sickly.
Plus, I think my ham radio is gonna reach Israel in the kind of tribulation.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
What?
His AM radio is not going to reach. So, you know,
The Bible says that barley and flax are the ones that are
at a
available
beep time,
at
that's
that time.
exactly right.
That's why I like to make barley and flax, unleavened
Yeah.
bread during this time, but I didn't get to do it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Thanks for those nuances. I think those are great on.
Yeah.
That possibility.
Yes, it is.
You know,
It,
it's, you know, for us, it's simple, and I, with stuff that he seasons. We know that Noah couldn't do that. We know he couldn't determine that. We know that people wandering around in the deserts.
right.
Themselves all the time, you know, they had a staff in hand, and it'd be easier to measure the staff, how hard it would be to, you know, figure out when something would be harvested or something like that. It just doesn't make any sense. What about all the people that left into other parts of the world?
Yeah.
Into the northern hemisphere.
Right.
The Jewish people.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
impossible.
And so you got to do all that locally where you are by the clock that's in the sky. And it's universal, by the way. It's universal. They didn't need a cell phone in ancient times. They could walk outside and look at the moon at any, by the way, you can't do that with the sun. You can't walk outside and tell me what day of the month it is. You can tell me what, you know, maybe what time of the year it is or something,
Time of the day.
or what time of the day, but you can't tell me what day it is.
Well, you can if you track it, you know, like the analemma.
Okay, let's say that you were in a coma for 3 or 4 months and you suddenly wake up, you don't know what day, what
Right.
month, night, what is.
That's why we use.
If you had to, and you have no technology, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You could walk outside at any night and see where the moon is. And if you knew the moon cycle, you knew what day of the month it is. Right? So you could start there. You may not know what month it is after being in a coma or whatever, but you would know what day it is. That's my point.
Yeah.
About that. Yeah.
Simple and practical.
What I hated when I was in the Messianic groups and I hadn't studied the calendar at all, was here we are at a great vineyard celebrating Pentecost on
Yeah.
a Sunday.
Yeah.
Why would that be a holy day to God? I knew Sunday was not a holy day,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there with Messianic people and I'm going in my heart saying, it can't be a feast day on a Sunday. The Sunday is a day of the sun. And
Yeah.
it's pagan. Why are we doing a feast day on a pagan Sunday?
They wanted to make it easy and they want to celebrate it, but they wanted to make it easy.
Yes.
Convenience, yes.
So
So-
popular.
But this is the time to seek Yah deeper at this time, right?
Yes, I
So
agree.
that's why he has put it in our hearts to seek him deeper.
Yes.
Amen.
And we have to teach them.
Yes.
Right.
But most don't want to learn, you know, but yes.
One by one, he's calling people.
Yes.
Well, the only reason that the one Lord's calendar is inconvenient. to me.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm just saying that if we ordered all our work days and everybody worked on those days, and then we had our rest days, it would be easy.
Yeah.
Like any other.
Yeah.
Cycle, normal cycle.
It's a lot of confusion. And first of all, it's too many choices for people because they get, you know, like oh my gosh, which one do we do?
That's the
And
point.
right, yeah. And it's a lot of confusion. Well, we know who the author of confusion is, and he wants it that way. And that's why I suggest that some of these days that are obscured because we've lost connection to agriculture, Satan wants it that way because he don't want you to make your appointment, right? And these are appointments that we're trying to make with the Father, and we want to keep them. You know, you can't make an appointment with a dentist and just show up whenever you want to,
That's right.
you know, or your doctor. You got to keep your appointment, right? And then you can't get mad if you show up and he's not there. You can't get mad because you didn't keep your appointment, right?
Appointment
So, it's important that we come back, like you said, come back to the ancient way and start looking at how they were doing it in the ancient times, this was an agricultural thing.
Without technology.
Everybody, even shepherd boys, knew how to read the stars and know what time it is and when the seasons were and things like that, right? We've lost that, you guys. We're in a cell phone age where people got to look to see when new moon is, and they got to look on their phone instead of going outside and then call me to ask me, when's new moon? Well, go outside and start looking at the moon. And I want you to, because don't call me every month, 2 days before or 2 or 3 days after and say, when's the new moon? Right. And you're looking on your cell phone trying to figure out. Anyway, we got to get into the habit of doing that ourselves. Everybody,
Yeah, I think the next step is, because I know how important the moon is for determining the day of the month, but the other part that's the most important part, I think that people need to have for observation, especially with Clovis, is observation of the stars.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's the most important, because if you look at the constellations, the way that agricultural works is that you have the sun in a select constellation, and then you have the other constellations around it
Mhm.
that are not available
Mhm.
for that part of the day.
Yeah,
Because it's lighting all those constellations. On the dark side is where you're seeing the other things.
Right.
So at various times of the agricultural year, those constellations start to pop above the horizon, and that's when they knew when to grow and when to do other things.
But you know
So
what?
we need to get into that.
Bethula does that. So Virgo, Bethula does that. It's in the sky during the day. You can't see it. You can only see it when it comes up in the morning, right? Before the sun gets too bright. That's when you start seeing that come up.
Yeah.
Right.
And it depends on
Spike
where you're
up.
at in the earth, right?
Say again?
It depends on where you're at. in the earth,
Yeah,
right?
and it does
Yeah.
because it's different in the southern hemisphere.
Exactly, because you
Well,
won't be
we
able
can,
to see.
we can start with sky view or something there, and then once we learn, then we can go and see where they are.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We can learn the different constellations and stuff. But I agree with you. I think if we're thinking about a clock and the sun and the moon are the big hand, little hand, I think the stars would be the numbers.
They're the basic clock.
Yeah, the face.
They're
Yeah.
the numbers, they're the basic
Yeah.
clock. Yeah, we need that. Yep.
Absolutely.
With all the constellations and the third salvation, it's really good. Robert.
But what we do need though, is we need a practical observation strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we want.
I hope you guys are able to hear this. We don't have a microphone. People are talking in the background.
Switch to the date year, they, oh, this is when this constellation hits the horizon this time of the year during Passover. I mean, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if this constellation is starting to come up during the beginning of this month,
Areas.
you know it's good, Passover is gonna be, and according to the moon,
Around.
you know it's gonna be right there.
Very good. That's right. Exactly right.
So it's just building this clock.
Now, some groups like to just go and start looking for barley to call, some of those groups, they don't even do that. They just start going out and looking at barley and determining whether if it's a beeb or if it's shattered or not. Right. And so, and sometimes they're off on that. Sometimes they get really close. Some of the barley that I'm looking at that they're going to, I think they could have picked better fields. It looks very sickly and it's growing on the side of a hill that's getting sun most of the day. So it's, anyway, it should be a little more consistency on checking fields. I would probably sample multiple fields and not just go to one area and stuff and do like they're doing. But it's kind of crazy to base everything just on that because you got to observe multiple things at one time to reconcile it. Otherwise, you get off. So that's what I got for you guys tonight on this part of the calendar observation. And we're going to talk more again on the next first fruits the next time I speak to you guys. So all right, shalom to you.
Thank you.